UFC 305 prediction for Duplessis versus Adesanya. But before we get to that, I am going to go over last week's card, Marcin Tybura and Sergey Spivak 2. I am going to go over my long shot parlay I did. I obviously didn't hit it. I did pretty well with it. I missed 3 out of 10. I had a 10 pick parlay. I missed 3. The 3 I missed were I had Tybura money line, and then I had Janata Deniz to win by KO or Carl Williams to win by decision. That didn't hit. And then I had Charlotte Lampos money line. So let's start off with those. Let's start off with Charla. So I had Charla money line. I thought his opponent he got knocked out in the first round. In his last 2 fights, as a bantamweight, he didn't really seem all that durable. And I was just like, Charla, he seems like he has power. He seems like he throws heat. I think he could probably get him out of there. And he did hurt him bad, really, really bad in the second round. Almost KO'd him. Was real close to a stoppage, but just completely gassed out. And Toshiami Kazama, to his credit, he had a good first round. He came out immediately, got to the grappling, immediately shot. Had him up against had Charlotte up against the fence and was controlling him. Eventually got the takedown. I believe he had his back for quite a while. And then Kazama won the first round pretty clear. Second round starts, and then Charlotte cracks him on the feet, drops him, hurts him, gets on top. I think he starts off in full guard and then works his way through half guard. And he's throwing elbows down, almost gets him out of there, but just completely gassed out. And Kazama locked up the triangle and got the win. Kazama he's a very good grappler. I think he's more of like a jiu-jitsu guy that got into MMA. His striking is not very good. He doesn't seem too he's tough, but he's not durable. Like, durable and being tough are two different things. Durable, like having a chin, is like Max Holloway or Vettori, where they can just get fucking domed across the head with like a shin bone and they could just eat it. It's not a matter of them like toughing it out per se. They just literally eat a concussive fucking blow that would knock out like 99% of the other fighters in the division. They just eat that shot like nothing. Kazama doesn't really have a good chin. He gets hurt real easily. He gets dropped, but he is tough. Like, he's not going to just turtle. Some fighters, when they get hurt, they kind of just turtle up and they kind of just accept the TKO defeat, let the ref step in. Kazama's not going to do that. He's going to go to the death. You have to fucking flatline him if you want to get him out of there, because he's going to keep trying, and that's what he did. He locked up the triangle and got the finish, and that was a shitty one, but not that bad, because I can like respect it, and the pick was close because I did have Charlotte by knockout. I thought he was going to win by knockout, and he came close, didn't get it, but it is what it is. This one, though, kind of pissed me off, and this was Janata Deniz to win by KO or Carl Williams to win by decision. This one I was actually pretty confident in, and the worst case scenario happened, and that was Carl Williams just did not wrestle. I think he shot 1 takedown in the first round. It was kind of like a half-hearted shot, wasn't really committed. And then he shot another one in the third round, late in the third round after he got rocked. He did shoot a takedown, got it kind of easily, and then controlled the whole rest of the round on top. And it just seemed like one of those fights where if Carl Williams really committed to the shot, really committed to wrestling early, I feel like he could have easily won that fight, because Janata did not seem to have any idea on how to get up from his back. He seemed stuck there. And I feel like Carl Williams could have honestly easily won that fight if he just wrestled. I have a theory. I'm not saying it's right, but I feel like, Muhammad Makayev did say the UFC like pressured him to be more entertaining prior to, his most recent fight. Obviously, he didn't get re-signed, but it seemed like the UFC pressured him to be more entertaining. I don't know if that's true. but it wouldn't surprise me if the UFC, because I think Carl Williams was what, like 4 or 5-0 in the UFC up to this point, and all decisions kind of the same way, just fucking ragdolling heavyweights, laying on them. Not the most exciting, casual, friendly style, but he was winning, and I'm wondering if the UFC basically told him, hey man, be more entertaining, aka don't fucking just shoot takedowns and lay on people for 3 rounds, or we're not going to re-sign you. I would not be surprised if the UFC kind of pressured him in some way or another. Maybe they didn't directly say, hey, don't wrestle, because that's fucking illegal, to quote Dana. But I don't know. That maybe I'm not saying that's the case. Maybe he just fought like a dumbass, or maybe he thought, he was going to outstrike a kickboxer over the course of 3 rounds, and it just didn't work that way. But yeah, that one sucked. Carl Williams, I really felt like was kind of a lock. I was pretty confident because in all of his other fights, the guy just fucking shoots takedowns. Even when he's fatigued, he just shoots over and over and over. In the one fight you think he would do that would be against Janata Deniz, who is a former pro kickboxer. But he didn't. He didn't until it was too late, and he lost the decision. So that one sucked. And then the main event, Marcin Tybura. I thought he was going to win. I really did. I thought it was going to be similar to the first fight. I thought he was going to pretty much stuff the takedowns. If he did get taken down, I thought he would work his way back up or reverse him. And I thought he would just kind of outpace him, outstrike him over the course of 5 rounds to a decision. And yeah, that was way off. Kind of. Spivak started off, landed a couple of good shots, got a takedown, was on top. He did get reversed, and then Tybura was on top in full guard. And I mean, Spivak was really showing that armbar. Like he was not like hiding that shit at all. Like he was really telegraphing it. But I just don't think Tybura thought he was gonna fucking explode over for that armbar like that. I mean, that was like, I don't want to say like prime Fedor, but it was Fedor-ish, like the way he swiveled his hips over and locked up the armbar real quick. I just don't think Tybura expected it, but he kind of should. I mean, the guy's a BJJ black belt. He's been doing this shit for a long time. Like, I realize, I know heavyweights don't do that shit often, but, I mean, he really was telegraphing that armbar. But good shit from Spivak. He came in leaner for this fight. I think he was like 237. Usually I think he weighs in at like 265, around the heavyweight limit. So he came in leaner, and he looked good. He looked good. That was a slick armbar. Did not hit that long shot parlay. But now we are going to get on to UFC 305, which is Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya. And let's start it off with the first fight between Stuart Nicole versus Jesus Aguilar. Now, Nicole, I believe, is coming in as like a 2-1 favorite, a little over 2-1 favorite. It's his UFC debut. He is 8-0. I did some tape study, and pretty much the game plan with this guy is he's going to shoot in, he's going to try to take you down, and he's just going to get top position. He's going to beat the shit out of you. He's either going to TKO you or he's going to submit you. But his control is really good. He's not the most, like, when you look at him, he's kind of like a wiry looking guy. He doesn't really look that strong, doesn't really look, too imposing. But he's one of those guys where he's stronger than he looks, especially in the grappling. And I feel like he's gonna kind of wrestle fuck Jesus Aguilar. Aguilar has been in the UFC. Usually I tend to side with the UFC veterans in this case against debuting guys. But Aguilar, looking at his record here, he has won his last 2. He KO'd Shannon Ross. That's not really, I mean, most people in the UFC at this level have beaten Shannon Ross. He did lose to Tatsuro Taira, first round triangle armbar. That's not a bad loss. I mean, Tatsuro, as we know, is kind of running through bantamweight right now. He's looking really good. So that's not a bad loss. He did win his last fight against Tush Mendoza, a Brazilian guy. The guy he fought, though, not that great. He's lost 3 in a row. It just doesn't really seem to be UFC caliber. And also, Jesus won a split decision against him. And before that, if you look at his career before the UFC, he did fight Edgar Chairez. He guillotined him. That's a pretty decent win for outside the UFC. Other than that, he did lose his debut by rear naked choke. So his 2 losses are by submission. And he is fighting a guy that is a grappler. Although Aguilar does have some subs himself. He has some guillotines. Like, that's his go-to. He likes to jump on that guillotine. He hit 3 in a row, which is pretty impressive. Not against the greatest competition. This is pre-UFC. Aguilar, I don't think he should be, well, he's not that big of an underdog, but I don't think that Nicole should be as big of a favorite as he is. I mean, I would favor him, but it would be ever so slightly. I am going to pick Nicole. I do think he is the better wrestler and grappler. I think he has the better control. Aguilar's a bit wild. He is going to jump guillotines, but if you have real good defense, I don't think that's going to be a problem. And I think Aguilar is going to kind of control him against the fence, eventually work in a takedown, get on top, and I think he's just going to kind of out-control him on the ground and use top control for the win. So my pick is Stuart Nicole. I'm going to go by decision. UFC level competition. I think he is going to win a decision. Probably 29-28, maybe 30-27. I can see Aguilar stealing around maybe the first round, stuffing some of those takedowns early and kind of chopping up his legs and outpointing him on the feet. But I think Nicole will eventually work his way to the ground, will get the takedown, and will get top control, and will do enough to get a decision. So I'm going to go with Stuart Nicole by decision to open up the card. The next fight moving up is going to be between Song Kanong and Ricky Glenn. Now this one is kind of interesting because Ricky Glenn used to be a featherweight, I believe. He fought at featherweight, I think, a few times. And Kanong is a welterweight. They're both 6 feet tall, and I think Kanong has like a 1.5 inch reach advantage, which is, I mean, frame-wise, they're not really different at all, but I just don't think Song Kanong could have ever made 145. I think he is the naturally bigger guy. I think he is going to come in heavier, a bit denser. And, yeah, I could see a world where Ricky Glenn can kind of maybe clinch him, maybe get some takedowns, kind of out-technique him, out-grind him a bit, because usually when you look at fighters that have fought in smaller weight classes, whether it be lightweight or featherweight, there is a bit of a skill difference. There is a bit of a skill gap. Not always, but sometimes there is. And I wouldn't be shocked if Ricky Glenn is the better fighter out of these two, but I don't think that's going to be enough. I think Song Kanong, I think his size, his strength, his punching power, because he does have legit punching power at welterweight, I think that's going to really be a factor in this fight. I'm looking at Ricky Glenn's record. He lost his last 2 fights by knockout in the first round to Drew Dober and Christos Giagos. Before that, he did beat Joaquim Silva. He TKO'd him pretty early, but he has been pretty inactive. He hasn't been the most active guy, but he's been around. He's fought good competition. He fought Evan Dunham, lost a decision. He fought Miles Jury, lost a decision. Fought Dennis Bermudez, beat him by split decision. Point is that Ricky Glenn, I don't think is a welterweight. I just don't think he is. I think he's kind of a little bit older towards the end of his career, and I think he's just kind of saying, fuck cutting weight. I'm just going to fight at 170. And I just don't see that going too well for him. Even if he has some success early with like some takedowns and he's able to kind of, get tricky with his grappling, I think Song Kanong is going to be able to get back up to his feet if he does get taken down. And I feel like on the feet, man, he's just going to kind of fuck Ricky Glenn up. I think that he hits too hard. I mean, he fucking dropped Ian Gary, man. Like, Ian Gary's good. Like, he's good, especially with the striking. And he sat Ian Gary on his ass. To be fair though, Sankanon has pretty much lost to every like higher level UFC fighter. Not even really higher level, but like more established fighters, more established names, guys that have been around. Like I'm looking at his record. He lost to Alex Morono. He lost to Max Griffin, Ian Gary, Kevin Gisette. He's beaten Bobby Nash, Hector Aldana, Derek Krantz, Callan Potter, Rolando Bedoya. All the guys he's beaten in the UFC, to be fair, have kind of been bottom tier level UFC fighters that are they're either not in the UFC or probably going to be on their way out. I think Bedoya might be the only one that's still currently in the UFC, and he might not be for long. He just lost his last one to Jai Herbert. As I take a sip of water. Yeah, I'm going to go Sankanon. I think he's going to knock Ricky Glenn out. I think Ricky Glenn's kind of at the end of his career, and I think he's going, hey, fuck it. I'm just going to move up to 170, fight out my contract. And I think Kanan is still at least kind of trying. And I also think he's a real welterweight. I don't think Ricky Glenn is a real welterweight. So I'm going to go Sankanon by knockout. Next up on the card is, let's see, we scroll up. Not zoom in, scroll up. Tom Nolan versus Alex Reyes. Alex Reyes, I believe, is the older brother of Dominic Reyes. And Tom Nolan is a prospect from Australia. We've seen him in the UFC twice. I believe in his debut, he fought Nicholas Mata, and he did get KO'd. He was a really big favorite in that fight, I believe. I actually think he's been a really big favorite in all of his fights so far. Let me double check here. Looking at Tapology. Let's see. So yeah, Tom Nolan 7-1. He won his last fight against Victor Martinez by a first round knockout. Although I might be wrong, but I feel like he also got stunned in that fight. And that shit worries me, man. Like especially at minus 1200, that to me is crazy. I get that he's 6'3". He had some good wins prior to the UFC and looked pretty good, but I don't know if I trust his chin. I think he's gonna win because I just straight up think he's a much better fighter than Alex Reyes, but I think minus 1200 is a bit fucking wild, like for a guy that got starched by Nicholas Mata in the first round. Like I think that's kind of crazy. And he got hurt, I believe, in his last win. In another kind of gimme fight, he got hurt. So I don't like seeing that. That being said, though, Alex Reyes is 37. He's been extremely inactive. His last fight was against Charlie Campbell, and that was in last September. He lost that fight by a first-round knockout. But before that, his last fight prior to that one was against Mike Perry fucking back in 2017. And he got KO'd. The guy just isn't active. Apparently, he's had injuries, and he's 37. I think the UFC kind of knows what they're doing. I do think Tom Nolan's going to win this fight, but I don't think he should be minus 1200. I really don't. I think minus 400 to 500, 5-1 favorite, I think would be relatively fair, but fucking that to me minus 1200 is crazy. I do think he's going to win. I think he will probably KO or TKO Reyes. But I still think the odds are way too wide for that matchup. But yeah, the pick is Tom Nolan by knockout. I think he's going to TKO him, probably jab him up from outside from the range, and then probably work the clinch, get the knees going, and I think he'll probably TKO him. The next fight up is going to be Jack Jenkins versus Herbert Burns. Another big favorite here. This time I really do feel like it's warranted, though. Jack Jenkins is pretty good, pretty skilled everywhere. He has really, really good low kicks. Chops the fuck out of people with the low kicks. And good grappler, too. He's just, overall, he's well-rounded. And Herbert Burns is Gilbert Burns' brother. This guy, when he first came to the UFC, he actually seemed like he was a relatively good prospect, to be honest. He did he beat Nate Landwehr, and he also beat Evan Dunham. Those are actually two really fucking solid wins, to be honest with you. Like I can't even shit on that. That's actually legitimate. But then from there on out, man, he just, ever since he lost to Daniel Pineda and he got knocked out and TKO'd, the dude just he seems broken. To be honest with you, I mean, all of his fights since then have looked the exact same. He starts off okay. He might try to grapple. He'll throw some strikes, but then he just fatigues hard, and then he kind of just seems like he kind of gives up, to be honest, and just takes a TKO loss. And I don't like seeing that. So unless he can kind of get back to that form we saw when he first came into the UFC, which was, I believe, in like 2020. Yeah, 2020. I don't see him having a chance in this fight. I think Jack Jenkins is going to legitimately just fuck him up. I really do. I think he's going to fuck his shit up. I think he's going to chop his legs and just batter the shit out of Herbert Burns. I really do. I think Jack Jenkins is going to fucking roll through him like a fucking hot knife through butter. I think Jack Jenkins TKO. Probably first round, late first round, maybe second round, but I'm going to go Jack Jenkins by knockout. I think this one is probably the easiest fight to pick, in my opinion, on the whole card. I just think it's a mismatch, to be honest. Next fight is Casey O'Neill versus Luana Santos. Again, my take on a lot of women's fights is that shit's going to be close. Like, usually these fights are going to go to a decision, and usually there's going to be a split card, and it's going to be close. Looking at their record here, I'm going to start off with Casey O'Neill. She's 9-2. Her last fight was against Ariane Lipsky, where she got armbarred in the second round. Not a good loss. Before that was against Jennifer Maia, lost by decision. That's not too bad of a loss. That's not like too bad. Before that, she beat Roxanne Modafferi by split decision. Now Modafferi, low-key, that is actually a pretty good win. Modafferi, towards her end of her career, she actually had a pretty good run. Got some upset wins and looked pretty good. She beat the shit out of Macy Barber. But she lost her last two. Luana Santos, looking at her record, 8-1. She did beat Maria Agapova. That's not a good win. I mean, if anyone knows the story of Maria Agapova, I mean, just look into it. That's not really a good win. Then before that, she beat Stephanie Yeager by decision, and then beat Juliana Miller by TKO. Honestly, I actually think Casey O'Neill is not a bad underdog because she's fought decent competition. She did lose to Ariane Lipsky, and that's not the greatest look in the world. But fuck it, I'm gonna go Casey O'Neill. I think Casey O'Neill will. I think the crowd will get her going. Hometown. I think she's going to push forward, and I think she's probably going to edge out a decision. I think the fight's going to stay on the feet, and I think she's going to use her range, use her boxing, and I think she's going to win. I think she's going to win a decision. I'm going to go Casey O'Neill. Fuck it. Next up is Josh Culibao versus Ricardo Ramos. I'm going Culibao. Ramos, he's got talent. Like he's got talent like everywhere. Striking wise, he'll do some shit that's like pretty sharp, and you're like, wow, that was actually pretty fucking slick. Like spinning elbows and things like that. And his submissions are also, somewhat slick. He'll do some, crafty things in terms of submissions, but I just feel like he's too wild. Doesn't have the greatest conditioning, and when shit gets hard, he kind of tends to fold a bit. And I feel like Culibao is just a tough motherfucker. He's not going to quit ever. He's going to go to the death, and he's well-rounded too. He does kind of get put in some scrambles, and doesn't look the best in moments, but I think he's going to win. I think he has better wins in the UFC. He beat Shaylin Nerdenbeck, he beat Sungwoo Choi. He beat Melsik Bagdasarian. He lost to Jalen Turner. He lost to Danny Silva by split decision, and he lost to Lerone Murphy by decision. Those aren't really too bad of losses. I'm going to go Kulibao. I think he's going to outwork him. I think he's... I'm going to go third round TKO. I think the first 2 rounds are going to be kind of close. But then I think Kulibao's pressure, his pace, his hands are eventually going to kind of break Ricardo Ramos. And I think I'm going to go with Kulibao. Late third round TKO. I'm pretty confident in this one. I don't like what I've seen from Ricardo Ramos. I just feel like when the going gets tough, he kind of folds. And if he doesn't catch you with some crazy, dynamic, flashy shit, he's probably not going to beat you. And Kulibao is tough enough where I feel like even if he does get cracked with some bullshit spinning elbow or like jumping knee, I feel like he can kind of survive and weather the storm and work his way through it. So I'm going to go with Kulibao. Late third round TKO. Moving up, we got Junior Tafa versus Walter Walker. Walter Walker is the brother of Johnny Walker. He made his UFC debut in his last fight, I believe, against Lucas Brzeski. I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Let me double check. Yeah, Brzeski. And he lost by decision. Yeah, I'm going to go Tafa. I just don't think Walter looked that good in his debut against a guy that is really not UFC level. And while Tafa has lost 2 fights, I think he's going to win. I'm going to go Tafa. Let's see. Moving up the card, we got Li Jingliang versus Carlos Prates. A lot of people are going. They're going with Prates, and I get it. He's looked good in his last few. He's knocking people out, but I don't know. I think Li Jingliang is a really good underdog. I know he's been out for a while, but he's fought really good competition compared to Prates, and I also feel like his grappling actually could be a factor in this one. Li Jingliang is a pretty underrated grappler, and I could see him use going that in this fight. But he has been out for a while. He is 37. I don't think he's a bad underdog. I'm kind of leaning towards Li Jingliang a little bit. I know a lot of people are high on Prates, but the dude smokes cigarettes. He doesn't really, I'm not saying he doesn't take his career seriously, but man, if you're smoking cigarettes on the regular, and I don't know. I think Li Jingliang could win this fight by out-wrestling him, out-grappling, getting that upset. I'm going to go Li Jingliang. I think he's going to win a decision. I think he's going to out-grapple him. I'm looking at Prates' record. He has some pretty bad losses. He lost to a guy, it was like 7-5, 9-10 by submission. Now, mind you, these were a long time ago, 2013 and 2014, so a long time ago. So obviously, he's had over a decade to improve, and he obviously has because he's on a roll. But even if this fight stays on the feet, like, guys have had success against Prates. Trevin Giles, had some success. Radke, had okay moments. Prates is explosive, and he is, like, sniper-like. He kind of... It almost looks like he's going tit for tat with you, and then all of a sudden he just turns it up and just snipes you out of nowhere and puts you on your ass. And I don't know, though, man. I think Li Jingliang can shut that down. I think he's going to use a lot of clinch. I think he's going to wrestle. I'm going to go Li Jingliang with the upset here. I think he's going to get a decision. I'm going to go with the vet. I think that this one's going to be the upset of the card. I'm going to go Li Jingliang. Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if Prates knocked him out because he is 37 and he's on a layoff, and Prates is a really good striker. But I just haven't seen enough from Prates to make me confident to pick him against a vet like Li Jingliang. Next fight up is Tai Tuivasa versus Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Now this one, I've been going back and forth on. Tai Tuivasa is obviously on a horrible losing streak. He's lost 4 in a row. He's gotten finished 4 straight times. But the fights he was losing, they were against, besides Tybura, they were against the top contenders. It was Gane, Pavlovich, and Volkov. Tybura is not a good, it's not a good look to lose to Tybura in the first round, but stylistically, Tybura is kind of a tough matchup because he can grapple, and he will grapple, and he is tough. And that's kind of how that fight played out, is Ty was kind of beating him up on the feet, and then eventually Tybura got him to the ground, got his back, and then submitted him. This fight's going to be, I think it's going to be a striking match. A lot of people are riding with Jairzinho, and I get it. But man, I'm looking at the record, dude, and I just, I think that Jairzinho's 2 biggest wins are against JDS and Overeem. Older Overeem and JDS, mind you, and also that Overeem fight, he was losing until he fucking clipped him in the last round, like the very end of the fight, and cut his lip open and got the TKO. He did knock out Arlovsky. Again, older Arlovsky, not that impressive, to be honest with you. Older JDS, again, not all that impressive. And then he's lost in Ngannou, Gane, Blades, Volkov, and Almeida. Ngannou starched him. Volkov starched him. And Almeida starched him. Blades kind of ragdolled him for 3 rounds, as expected. And then Gane outpointed him, out-kickboxed him, and over the course of 5 rounds. Yeah. I don't know on this one, man. I feel like Ty's a live dog just because, look, it's going to be a striking match, and if anyone stands with Ty and just decides to just strike, you could get knocked the fuck out, man. And so can Ty. Ty is not necessarily the most durable guy in the world himself. He has been hurt. He has been put down with strikes. And Jairzinho does hit hard. I do think Jairzinho has the sharper technical striking. I think his jab's better. I think his straight's better. I think his timing is a little bit better. But I do feel like sometimes Jairzinho can get behind on volume. And I do think Ty is going to be the one pressing forward, and he is going to be the one kind of taking those risks and throwing the heat. And shit's going to get hairy in this fight, man. And I'm gonna go Jairzinho just because I feel like Ty's. I know he has like a lot of like businesses and stuff going on that he's doing, and it just seems like he's kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door with his career. And also, he does blow up in between camps, and he gets, I think, well into the 300 pound range, and I don't like seeing that. I mean, if this is a style matchup where if he was going to win, it would be against Jairzinho, because again, Jairzinho isn't going to grapple him. I don't think. I just don't think he will. But I'm going to go Jairzinho. Honestly, I actually think this might go to a decision. I think Jairzinho could outpoint him for 3 rounds and kind of just stick him with the jab and low kick him and kind of just touch him up and keep him out range. If Ty gets crazy and he starts to throw and he really starts to just say, fuck it, I'm going for it, I could see Jairzinho cracking him with a counter and putting him out. That is typically how Jairzinho gets his knockouts, is he kind of hits you with a clean counter and hurts you and then puts you out. He's not really one of those guys that kind of fucking just, he doesn't really maul you. He doesn't go forward and just exchange big punches. He doesn't really hunt you, if that makes sense. He kind of waits, counters. If he hurts you on a counter, then he'll try to close the show. But I could see this one going all 3 rounds, similar to the Arlovsky fight back in the day, which honestly I kind of thought Andre did beat Tuivasa in that fight. Tuivasa got the decision, but at the time when I watched that fight, I low-key kind of thought Andre won, and I could see a similar type of fight here where Jairzinho kind of just jabs him up and out techniques him for 3 rounds. I'm gonna go Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Ty though is not a bad underdog because look, man, Jairzinho's gonna strike and Ty can fucking knock you out if he lands, and it's that simple. But I am gonna go Jairzinho. That's gonna be my pick. Rosenstrike. On to the next one. Mateusz Gamrot versus Dan Hooker. Honestly, the only way I really see Dan Hooker winning this fight is if he catches Gamrot with a knee up the middle on a shitty level change. Other than that, I really do think Gamrot is going to kind of just fucking ragdoll him and control him in the wrestling, get the clinch, spin around, get the body lock on the back, and just kind of throw him around, out wrestle him. I can maybe see Gamrot getting the submission. Dan Hooker's been submitted before, but Gamrot's not. I mean, outside of the Jeremy Stevens, Kimura, he hasn't really been too much of a submission threat in his fights. I'm going to go Gamrot by decision. Dan Hooker, he's tough, he's durable, he's got good striking, but I don't see him stopping the wrestling from Gamrot. Gamrot, I do feel like, has honestly kind of digressed from when he fought Arman. I feel like his conditioning isn't as good. I feel like he gasses out in fights more than he used to. And he kind of gets clipped and he gets a bit sloppy. But, yeah, man, I think he's going to survive anything Dan Hooker throws his way. And I think he's just going to kind of wrestle fuck him. I'm going to go with Gamrot decision. I think he's going to really just control him in the wrestling. I think it's pretty simple and straightforward on that one. Next up is Kai Kara-France versus Steve Erceg at flyweight. Now this one, I low-key kind of wanted to go with Kai Kara-France because I feel like there's a world where I could see him outpointing Steve Erceg and kind of moving laterally, cutting angles, switching stances, throwing those long combinations where he ends with a kick, either low or high. In this case, probably low because Erceg is quite a bit taller. There is a world where I can see Kai Kara-France doing that. And in fact, I do think this fight is going to look a lot like Kai Kara-France winning the fight until he's not. That's how I see this one going. I think Steve Erceg is going to kind of get outpointed. I think Kai Kara-France is going to be a little bit quicker with his combinations, with his footwork, his in and out movement. And I think he's going to kind of get ahead of Erceg a bit early, but Kai Kara-France, his chin worries me a bit. I've seen him get dropped. I've seen him get hurt. And I feel like Erceg is going to time something. I just have a feeling Erceg is going to time something and crack him with like a knee or a 1-2 or just something. And I think he's going to get him out of there. I don't know why, but that's how I see this fight playing out. I think Kai Kara-France is going to start off really good. I think he's going to be outpointing him. And then I think he's going to get cracked with something big, and I think he's going to get put away. Yeah, I'm going to go Erceg. I think Erceg is going to find that finish. Although Kai Kara-France by decision is not the worst pick because, like I said, there is a world where I could see Kai Kara-France kind of just out dancing and moving around him and kind of just picking him apart with volume and those long-winded combinations and stealing a decision. I could see that, but I feel like Erceg is going to crack him with something. I just have a feeling he's going to crack him with something and get him out of there. I have no real fucking basis for that. It's just kind of a hunch. I'm going to go Erceg. Moving up, we have the main event between Dricus du Plessis versus Israel Adesanya for the undisputed middleweight championship of the world. I've gone back and forth with this one, and I see both sides. I could see what people are saying when they say Dricus' awkwardness and his movement and his power and his wrestling and grappling is going to be enough to beat Israel. But I just have a feeling Izzy's going to have one of those all-time performances. I think that this time off has been good because he was so active, not only in his kickboxing career, but also in his MMA career when he got to the UFC, man. It's just been, I feel like it's been Izzy just nonstop. And I just feel like this time off is a good thing. And Dricus is not Strickland. Now, I do think Izzy genuinely probably had an off night against Strickland. Not to say that Strickland, couldn't possibly beat him in a rematch. But I do think he did have an off night. I don't think we're going to see a performance like that from him again. And I think he's going to knock Dricus out, man. I think he's going to knock him out. I think Dricus is too hittable. I've been watching a lot of his fights from early in his career to now, and he has improved defensively, especially in his last two. His guard in particular, he's really good at using like a real high up front guard, using his forearms, and he does a good job with, especially against Whitaker, with blocking jabs and straights. Whitaker has a very good jab. He's got a good straight, and I think Dricus kind of knew that going in, and he adjusted his guard a bit with like a real front high guard with his forearms, and he gave a real small gap between to land those straight punches, and he kind of just marched him forward, used his grappling, and got Whitaker out of there. And then the Strickland fight was close. I personally did score it for Dricus. I thought he did enough with the takedowns and the kicks, but it was really close. But again, different type of fight. Same thing with Strickland versus Izzy. Strickland, he marches you down with forward pressure, but he doesn't really give any openings because he's super technical and he has very good defense. Dricus does not have that same kind of defense. He's way more hittable. He takes way more risks, and he is more dangerous because of that. In terms of like his KO power and ability and his submission threat, he is more dangerous because he takes more risks. But that being said, he leaves himself open quite a bit, man. And look, dude, fucking a lot of people in the UFC and even outside the UFC have kind of pieced him up a bit on the feet, and I just feel like Izzy's gonna fuck him up on the feet, man. I think Dricus is gonna get kind of wild. I think he's gonna come in a bit overconfident because he's the champion, and as he should, I mean, look, he's proved a lot of people wrong, including me, because I kind of thought Dricus was on his initial run up. I was like, he's tough, he's got skills. He's just fucking sloppy, and he doesn't really. He has these moments where he looks like he's gonna get fucking KO'd on the feet, and I just, to his credit, he hasn't yet. He's won all of his fights, but I see Izzy KO'ing him, man. I see Izzy just fucking him up. I think Izzy will stuff a few takedowns. Maybe will get taken down. Will survive like a guillotine attempt. Dricus does like to kind of jump on guillotines, and I could see him trying that against Izzy because Izzy is, tall and he is kind of lanky. I could see him, maybe jumping for a guillotine and a transition. Izzy scrambling his way out of it, working his way back up to his feet. Also, another thing I noticed about Dricus is he fights in bursts. He tends to kind of explode. He fights in a burst, and then he kind of has to have this reset period where he has to take a breather. And you'll notice this in the Darren Till fight. If you go back and rewatch the Darren Till fight, he starts off obviously really good, pins Till up against the fence, and he's fucking him up with ground and pound and hitting him up against the fence when he's trapped. And he starts off the first round well, but then by the end of that first round, man, he was pretty fatigued, and he started off the second round, was kind of getting outstruck, didn't look all that great, probably lost the second round. And then to his credit, he always does recover. He not only does he recover, but he also pushes through fatigue well. And this is also prior to his nose surgery, which does seem to have helped a bit with his conditioning. But I still think he fights in bursts. And this is going to sound crazy, but low-key, I feel like Izzy might be better off to kind of almost let Dricus, come forward and really try to throw down with him early, like make Dricus think, oh, I'm hurt a little bit. Go up against the fence and let him tee off. Let him shoot in a takedown. Let him get on top and wail down on you, and maybe let him jump on a submission attempt and squeeze his arms, because I'm telling you, man, he fights in bursts, and there are moments after those bursts where he has to recover, and those are the moments where guys have success against him. And I feel like Izzy, he's not one of those guys you can have those rests against, because if Izzy sees you resting like that and it feels like you're in a weakened state, he's gonna fucking turn up the pressure on you. Like Gastelum, for example, when he sensed Gastelum was hurt in that fight in the 5th round, he fucking went after Gastelum with everything and almost had him out of there. Most refs honestly probably would have stopped that fight, but they let it go in Gastelum versus Adesanya in the 5th round. But if Izzy senses that shit, man, he's gonna turn it up, and you cannot be there to get hit by Izzy because he's so accurate, and he's going to string together multiple shots. It's not going to just be like him throwing a haymaker and hoping it lands while you're hurt. No, he's going to fucking snipe you when you're hurt and really fucking do damage. And I think we're going to see an all-time performance from Izzy. I think he's going to fucking flatten Dricus. I really do. I'm going Izzy. I totally get people going on Dricus. He has a lot of momentum. Stylistically, on paper, if you do look at it, he does present a lot of threats to Izzy. But I think he's just too hittable, and I think he's going to come in a little too over-aggressive, and I think he's going to get caught. And, I'm going to go with Israel Adesanya. I think he's going to get the belt back by KO. And I am going to do a long shot parlay video separately. I'm going to figure that out a little bit closer towards the fight once like the lines open up, more lines and more specific betting methods open up for DraftKings. This card, though, I will say I am leaning towards a lot of favorites. There's only a couple of favorites. Like Dricus, he's as an underdog, he is a good underdog. Like if you were going to pick him, picking Dricus as an underdog in this matchup is a decent pick. I still think Izzy wins, but it's not a horrible pick because there is a world where Dricus could, fucking take Izzy down and take his back and end up submitting him or some shit. I don't think it's going to happen, but Dricus isn't a bad underdog. Li Jingliang I don't think is a bad underdog. In fact, I'm picking him, not the most confident, but fuck it, man. There's going to be an upset on this card. I'm going to go with the UFC vet who's been against the top guys, against the newcomer that's looked good but hasn't really been tested. But other than that, I really do feel like this card is going to be a lot of favorites winning. So that's my prediction for UFC 305. I did order a microphone, so this shitty audio through my webcam will be better hopefully by the next card prediction video. If not, then the next one after that. So yeah, thank you for watching, and this is my UFC 305 predictions. Hopefully we'll be right on this one, and stay tuned for a long shot DraftKings parlay for UFC 305. I will be doing a video in that probably around Thursday of this week. That's it. Y'all have a good one.